But ye, O my people, rise up and awake. Let the rituals be rightly performed with joy and beauty. There are rituals of the elements and feasts of the times. A feast for the first night of the prophet and his bride. A feast for the 3 days of the writing of the book of the law. A feast for Tahuti and the child of the prophet, secret, O prophet. A feast for the supreme ritual and a feast for the equinox of the gods. A feast for fire and a feast for water. A feast for life and a greater feast for death. A feast every day in your hearts in the joy of my rapture. A feast every night unto new and the pleasure of uttermost delight. Aye, feast, rejoice. There is no dread hereafter. There is the disillusion and the eternal ecstasy in the kisses of new. Well, happy beginning of the feast for the 3 days of the writing of the book of the law. And that was from New Wheat's chapter, actually. And it's going to be very short today because everybody is posting their readings of the chapter 1 of the book of the law, which is a wonderful thing. You can't listen to it enough, actually. And I posted this morning something that Constance recorded, I think just 2 years ago, and we posted it just last year, of her reading of the book of the law. And there's a beautiful Stele in the background, and her voice is just, I told her this morning, it's better than listening to Emma Thompson read it, you know. But anyway, so this morning I'm just going to share with you a little memory concerning the reading of the book of the law, and perhaps share something else, because toward the beginning in verse 10 of the third chapter, it says, "Get the stele of revealing itself, set it in thy secret temple, and that temple is already aright disposed, and it shall be your Qibla forever. It shall not fade, but miraculous color shall come back to it day after day. Close it in locked glass for proof to the world." And it goes on to 11. "This shall be your only proof. I forbid argument. Conquer, that is enough." And it goes on that I'll make easy to you the abstraction. It's abstractions. It's a kind of a unique word there. "From the ill-ordered house of the victorious city." And the victorious city, of course, we're interpreting as Cairo. But be that as it may, I want to turn the clock back to the evening of November 15th, 1975. Now, I was staying for a few days at the home of Phyllis and Grady McMurtry in Dublin, California, not too far from here. And I had traveled there to receive my Minerval initiation into the OTO. And at the time, I had no idea how incredibly small and informal the OTO was at that time. In fact, I would discover later that evening that the members were pretty much made up of Phyllis, Grady, Helen Parsons Smith, and perhaps one or two others scattered around. Be that as it may, it was the OTO to me, and that Phyllis's house was the cathedral of the OTO, and I was sitting there having conversations with the Pope and the Popess of Thelema, or of the OTO at the time. Be that as it may, on that evening, and I want to share this with you without spoiling any initiatory surprises or violate any secrets. But there is an opportunity, let's say that night, there was an opportunity for me to read aloud a chapter of the Book of the Law. And I chose to read chapter 1. And see, there's a tie-in. This is new each day. I chose to read chapter 1. Now, remember that I had probably only read the Book of the Law through one time before burning the book. So I wasn't familiar with the text. My Book of the Law, a little blue paperback, actually, little blue paperback that a friend brought back from England for me. And the little blue paperback was published in Dublin, California. There's a little sticker on the inside front, and it was published in Dublin, California, which gave me a certain amount of confidence that this was the OTO, because the Thoth Tarot cards had on the promotional card in the Thoth Tarot deck that I bought in 71 or 2, whatever that was, also had that Dublin address, a post office box address in Dublin. So I was confident that I was in the right place. But anyway, that book that the friend brought back from England, I read it through for the first time, and thinking I was following the instructions magically, and besides, the third chapter freaked me out so badly that I burned it. And if you're interested in sort of a dramatic retelling of that, that was done by the real-time people, the Zuckerbucks from Canada did a documentary on it. And I posted excerpts from that documentary on my Facebook page today. Anyway, so I was not very familiar with first chapter. And so I was reading it. Now remember, I'm a 28-year-old person with no college degree or anything else. And there's words that I don't use in my everyday English. And I don't think I ever used the word abrogate before, or assuaged. And as I was reading the first chapter, I could see both in Grady and Phyllis a certain unease at how poorly I was reading this, because obviously they had both had it memorized and had great respect for the sacred document, and I was just butchering it. And if you can picture them both magnificently arrayed in ceremonial costumes, and we're in a initiatory chamber, if you will. And when I was through reading it, Grady snatched the book out of my hand and said, "Here's how you read it." And as I stood there, sheepishly, embarrassedly, Grady read the entire first chapter again, so I could hear a good oral interp of the first chapter. Well, that's that part of the story. Then after the ceremony and after the formalities were over, there was still a part of the ceremony that it seemed to include the dinner afterwards, and Phyllis made a wonderful sort of Indian curry kind of thing, complete with some chutney that she made from the recipe that Jane Wolfe had shared with her, that assuming that Crowley liked his curry. But anyway, it was a wonderful, wonderful conversation at dinner afterwards, and there was wine, and then I found out the actual status of or non-status of what the OTO was at that time, and what they were building toward in resurrecting it. And I got the whole story of Kolgurmer allowing the order to stop initiating for a number of years, and that's why there's just a couple old ninth degrees left. And but anyway, Grady had prepared a little package, a little packet for me to take home with me. And you have to remember this 1975, and they're copy machines, all right, but it's a pain in the ass. You have to go to a copy center and to make enlargements and things like that. It wasn't like it is, today, where you can just go down to Office Depot and make 1,000 copies of this and 1,000 copies of that. But anyway, he gave me 3 legal size papers that had the 3 sections of the Stele, and 3 other legal size papers with 3 sections of the back of the Stele, and with the instructions that of course, there was a wonderful, beautiful stele that they had from Agape Lodge on the altar for our ceremony. But he said every Thelemite should have their own stele, and wherever they posted in the room of their private temple, that's their east. And if you really want to get really good at it, you find the compass directions from where you are to Boleskine House in Scotland. But anyway, he said, we don't have a stele to give you, so you'll have to make your own stele. Now, I took that home, opened up my kit there, and in my kit was also all the OTO related copies of all the OTO related material that was in the Blue Equinox. The manifesto, the open letter to those who would wish to join the order, the intimation toward the constitutions. Because at that Minerval dinner, Grady had pushed across the dining room table, he pushed the copy of the Blue Equinox. And when we were discussing how the order was going to be resurrected, he says, if it's a computer program, this is your programming guide to what the OTO is, you know. So it was a wonderful little packet of stuff, goodies that he sent home with me. But I didn't know how to make a stele, okay? I had a friend that did guitar inlay work for me, and he says, well, I can cut you out a piece of pressed wood, you know, in a stele shape, you know, the shape like that. But you're going to have to draw it on yourself or do something. Well, I wasn't going to freehand draw and then paint a stele, so I didn't know what to do. So I went to the stationery store, or an Office Depot, or whatever it was called in those days. And I got really, really thick poster board, couple sheets of it, something that would almost be firm enough to use as a protest sign or something like that. As a matter of fact, that's probably where I got the idea. And I laid it out on the floor, and I took the copy of the front of the stele, and I sort of secured the copy to the top of the pasteboard, and with a pencil, a pretty dull pencil, I very firmly drew the outline of every character on that stele. Big, long nuit, all of that, all of those things. And then I cut them out with scissors. And then I pasted them to the wood, okay? And then I painted them. For the bottom ones, I outlined them and then filled them in. But if you can, and here it is, okay? This is my homemade stele that 1975, so it's not quite 50 years old, but it will be soon. Now, if you look at Nuit's hand there, you can see that a little bit has been chipped off. But if you hold it this way, you can see how all of those are separate pieces of poster board that is glued to the top and painted. And the back, of course, was easier to do because I didn't have to cut out every one of those. I could just literally transfer them to the surface. Now, The color, well, look at that stele in the back there. Isn't that gorgeous? Now that's somebody professionally does those, and you can find any number of them and buy your own stele. And this one, the colors may seem kind of fresh or kind of bright, but every couple of years I have to freshen up. I have to take the time. I have to take the meditative artisan's time to recolor them. And as you can see, yeah, well, I'm probably in probably due to color it again soon, because you can start to see some. But where the miraculous color coming back to it, I have to be I have to be the miracle year after year. So that is my Stele story. And that is my little offering today for the feast of the first day of the writing of the Book of the Law. And this is the first time I think I've shared my Stele story. Anyway, that's it for today. I encourage you to scroll down on my page or go to YouTube and put Constance DuQuette, chapter 1 of the Book of the Law, and treat yourself to a recitation of the chapter 1 of the Book of the Law as read by St. Constance of the Well, Our Lady of Perpetual Motion. Until tomorrow, when we'll talk about chapter 2. Until then, have a blessed feast of the first day. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.